Well, hello, long time no see, guys. It is Tim Lloyd back with another edition of the Zero Hour. I'm with my man Jeff Hobbs and my man Cody Saftic. And it's been a while, guys. It's actually been a couple weeks since we've done an episode. We've been in a little bit of a downswing after a busy summer and getting ready to rev up for a big fall. And today we got a special episode ahead of we got fights this weekend, first off, at the fair in Nashville. So stay tuned. We'll have a fair show breakdown. Jeff and I'll probably do that Wednesday, I'm guessing. So we'll be back for that then. But today we're talking Contender Series as our Aries champ, Trevor Peek, gets the call the very next day after Aries Amped to step in on a month to the day notice to fight Malik Lewis at Dana White's Contender Series. I believe the last episode of this season, maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe there's a couple more, but I think we're
second to last.
Yeah, second to last. Episode. So this it's exciting, and we got Cody on to join us here, and I'm excited to get his breakdown because otherwise you just have a couple homers here in me and Jeff talking about why we're going to bet on Trevor Peek. So hopefully Cody can give us a third-party view here and make sure that we're on the right path here. Jeff, this is an exciting one. This is one of those situations where, we kind of got the word from management before the Kamaworthy and Trevor Peek fight even happened that, hey, they're watching this fight. They want to know what happens because there's an opportunity if things go the right way. And of course, no one told anything to Trevor about that because that would just be a distraction. But it made the anticipation all the more for us, Jeff.
Yeah, you've got that personal investment involved, with someone you consider a friend, and also a representative of Aries Fight Series. So, there was a lot, way more on the line for Trevor Peek than us, but it was hard to keep that information because we knew we didn't want to, anything to cloud his focus at that time. But, getting the word from management that, eyes were on it. The text messages had come through, let us know as soon as the fight's over. I wish he would have been watching, instead of asking for a text message, but hey, they're busy people. We can't have it all. But, I feel like we got a show tomorrow is honestly to me what it feels like. I've got that same anticipation that it's our show, or a Titans Sunday for us here in Nashville. Like I can't wait till tomorrow morning to get up and it's game day. I'm ready, man. I'm ready to go.
Cody, you got to call the action at Amped. You were on the play-by-play. You were there for Peek's win over Kamaworthy. Before we get into breaking down this one, what was your takeaway? We haven't got to speak to you on the show anyway since. What was your takeaway from his performance at Amped?
Yeah, for sure. So for you guys as a promotion, right, you're looking to build up those homegrown talent, those homegrown stars, guys that'll sell tickets, but also potentially go on to the bigger shows. So as a promotion, it's not like there's a financial investment in Peek, but this is why you guys do it. So it was pretty cool to go down there and it was like, Trevor Peek's the guy. I'm like, damn, he's big in Nashville, big in Tennessee. It's like, he's from Alabama. But he's so big in Alabama, they're willing to travel. They're willing to follow for this guy. He's got a massive following. So, of course, familiar with his career, he had beat David Robbins, big win there, potentially as an underdog against an undefeated fighter. David Robbins had been getting kind of scouted out for a potential Contender Series fight. He follows that up with the win over Kamaworthy, a UFC veteran. It was surreal. And everyone said, he is the king of Pisgah, Alabama. And I said, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Seeing his fans there, seeing the dedication, seeing a guy that was essentially fighting on the regional show from Alabama with that many sponsors on his shirt, the whole community's behind this guy. So I'm not gonna lie. It was like a very cool experience to see a guy have that kind of following, show off that he's a legitimate fighter, grown out of your guys' scene, and then potentially gonna knock on the door here and get a contract. Listen, if he wins, he gets a contract because you guys have seen the guy fight before, right? He doesn't lose, he doesn't win in boring fashion, right? He's do or die. If he wins, he's getting in. If he loses, they're still gonna say, wow, we'd like to have you in at some point, go in a couple more fights and be on standby for short notice or whatever the opportunity may be. But I think he's got a good chance here. So very excited to see him.
All right, let's get into it. Of course, this goes down tomorrow night. It will be Tuesday at that time, the 13th of September. ESPN Plus, Dana White's Contender Series. The odds open. There's interesting movement here. The odds opened more or less at a pick'em. The actual favorite was Peek to open. It looks like Peek opened at -115. Lewis opened at -105. For all intents and purposes, that's even money. That's a pick'em. The public has bet Lewis all the way up to 2-1 favorite at this point now. -200 on Malik Lewis, +170 is the return, depending on your book, maybe between 160 and 170 on Trevor Peek. Any surprise, guys, here on the line movement? Do you, here in Tennessee, we know everybody's betting Trevor Peek. The sports books took a bath this last event that we had with Peek being a +180 underdog, a very similar number to what we're seeing here. Everybody was on Peek, and the books took a bath on that one. Any I guess surprise here, Cody, that there's the line has swayed all the way to 2-1 for Malik Lewis here?
Yeah. So the first thing that I would say is sports gambling is illegal in Alabama, right?
Right.
Right. So when he fought in Tennessee, he came to Tennessee. His fans came from Alabama to Tennessee. Now they're able to bet it. Now they cram Trevor Peek. Now they go back home. They can't bet on Trevor Peek. So his following, his hardcore guys that know about him, that know about the work ethic, that know that he's turned his life around, the guys that are actually backing him probably don't have any means to physically back him on a monetary standpoint. Whereas Malik Lewis has traveled around. He's been in different spots. He seems to have a pretty decent following himself. He's undefeated. I know his fans are hardcore for him just as much as the Trevor. Well, no one's as hardcore for Trevor Peek than the Trevor Peek fan base. But he does have a good following, no doubt about that. And I would say more people are probably familiar with him or were able to physically go, hey, man, I'm going to bet you, and then actually go and bet him. Whereas because it's not you can't bet in Alabama, and that's where his biggest following is. I'm thinking that has something to do with it, because I would say every Trevor Peek fight could be summed up as 50-50. He's taking you out, or maybe you can pull off something and take him out. It's going to be a crazy fight. I think when you saw Kama Worthy that big of a favorite, immediately everyone said, geez, Trevor Peek shouldn't be that big of a dog in any spot. And now to come back in the very next fight and give you pretty much the same dog money on him, yeah, I would say he's got the goods to go out there and pull this thing off, and the line just makes it look even better if you're a Trevor Peek follower.
Jeff, we'll get your take on this one first. Obviously we've seen lots of Trevor Peek fights. I watched a couple of Malik Lewis's fights, his most recent couple anyway. What's your breakdown here? Lewis is obviously the taller, longer, rangier fighter. Probably the more technical fighter for that matter. What have you kind of gathered from film study?
I mean, confidence is going to be huge right now. I mean, the guy has not seen defeat, which we know Trevor hasn't seen defeat as a pro, but his opponent Malik has not seen defeat as an amateur as well. So, so he's got that going for him. He's got a lot of confidence. But looking at that very last fight is the one I kind of focused on, because that's the last thing we've seen of him going into this, Contender Series fight. Trevor here recently has really tried to utilize, some kicks, setting up his punches. I don't know necessarily, in my opinion, that he wants to do that in this instance, because Malik is immediately looking to grab a hold of you. This last fight he had with Peak Fighting Championship, the whole fight was on the cage pretty much. So I don't know if Trevor's going to want to open himself up to that. I will say personally, it'll be a feather in the cap beating a Trevor Peek, but stylistically, I don't know that Malik's style is something that's going to cash him a contract unless he opens up a little bit, more. So my hope as a Trevor Peek fan would be that Malik understands what's on the line and realizes that sometimes just simply a win is not going to get you that contract, that maybe I've got to open up a little more. Maybe I've got to kind of look for that knockout too, and keep this thing off the cage. A lot of people watch Trevor Peek fight if it goes past the first round, and you've seen him. I think of the Ben Brewer fight, things like that, where he looks like he's gassing and things like that. And Malik's got a motor on him. But if he's expecting, though, that Trevor Peek is going to gas, he's going to be mistaken, because the guy throws bombs, after the tank's empty too. So, I think Trevor's game plan is going to be to go in and get the contract by any means necessary, where I'm feeling like Malik's game plan is going to be, I just want to win this fight.
Cody, your take here. I myself watching the Malik Lewis footage, I felt like, I didn't see a whole lot of just earth-shattering power in his strikes to where maybe Trevor wouldn't kind of eat one to give one. And that's the kind of fight that I would assume he would like to have. I saw that, there wasn't a lot of like explosive wrestling from Lewis. He will look for like body lock takedowns and trips and whatnot, but not necessarily blast doubles. What's your take on this, man? Do you think that the technique, the grind of Lewis can overcome the the explosiveness and the power and the tenacity of Peek?
Well, I think he's going to have to do a bit of both. Like, one thing about Malik Lewis is if you just look 2 fights back against Giovanni Cruz, he just batters him standing. I mean, he throws a lot of elbows, knees up the middle. He shows that he has a striking arsenal. And then the very next fight against Marcos Vinicius, he's not looking to strike at all. He just clinches him up against the cage for the entirety of the contest. So what I would say is that he is well-rounded. He could do both, but I didn't see anything in either of his game plans that was like world-class. When he was striking, it wasn't world-class. Trevor Peek would 100% sit down in the pocket with him and exchange shots. What Lewis does against the cage, not world-class wrestling, but he could wear on Trevor Peek in theory. If I was coaching Malik Lewis, what I would say is for the first round, lean on him, right? Because yes, if you do look on tape anyways, it's like Trevor Peek does maybe fatigue the later these fights go. In the Worthy fight, his very last fight, body language kind of shows that he's maybe a little bit off. He says in his own post-fight interview right afterwards, very sick, got COVID 2 weeks before the fight, coughing up black stuff the day of the fight at the hotel, still goes out there with one lung and puts it on. And now he's fighting 4 weeks later. So like, how much better is his condition? How much better is his cardio? You need the contract, and you're not going to get the contract by leaning on him for 15 minutes. But it would be smart to lean on him for the first 5 minutes, tire him out. Then you could probably afford to exchange a little bit more. But he's also 6 feet tall. He's a big, strong guy. He's a switch stance fighter. He seems smooth, but he's ultimately going to want to grab a hold of Trevor Peek, press him into the cage. And when he realizes this is not the best performance for Dana, maybe he tries to throw some. But that's just me playing devil's advocate. If I want to be on Trevor Peek's side, which at plus money, I'm on Trevor Peek's side, 2 things that really stand out. One, Trevor Peek's not a dummy, man. And knowing that he's got this guy in front of him, his team, Ruby Sports Management, is like, how can we put him in the best position to succeed? Let's send out Gustavo Lopez, UFC veteran, full-time out of Las Vegas, also managed by Ruby Sports, right? Now, the thing with Gustavo Lopez is he's good wrestler, but his get-up game is legit. Here's a guy that got taken down 13 times by Merab Dvalishvili. Now, some people are thinking, that's not a good stat. No, but it is, because he got up 12 times. His get-up game is awesome. Very good off the cage. Trevor Peek and them know exactly what Malik Lewis is going to try to do. Press him up against the cage, try to take him down. He's been working on his cage get-ups. He's been working on his takedowns. And then the other thing is, after the Worthy fight, there's a group of us all hanging out in the venue afterwards. Fans are leaving. His team's hanging out with him. And I remember somebody says, man, like, I didn't see that slam coming. Like, you just picked up Worthy and just slammed him. And he was like, man, I felt so much stronger than him in there. He's like that. I just at one point was like, picked him up and dumped him. And then the guy goes, a lot stronger. And he give him this look, man. And he goes, way stronger. And that's the X factor with Trevor Peek, man, is they don't know what the fuck they're getting into until they're actually in there. And after the fight, dude, he's taking pictures, nicest guy. And then he goes to Vegas for a photo shoot. Got that $1 million smile, his teeth are fixed. It's like, damn, Trevor's like a normal guy in society. And then I saw him at the weigh-ins today, and he had the fucking look in his eyes again. Yes, he did. And that's why if you go on the YouTube video for MMA Junkie, it's the picture for the YouTube video. Is Peek all up in there? He's got the look. He's ready to go. I don't think people realize how strong he is until they get in there with him. And they're chalking up the Worthy fight to, well, Worthy's chinny. They're not realizing the other things in there, which is his strength, his ground game, super underrated. He works out full-time with Torrens Finney, 2-time Georgia State wrestling champion, a guy that could have had, a successful collegiate career had he not wrestled. almost an All-American in high school, very, very solid training partner. So they're just looking at it as a go-gi, small gym, and guy has fought on a smaller regional scene. They're not seeing the X factors that the Trevor Peek fans know. But the Trevor Peek fans are all from Alabama, can't bet the fight. So that's why I think guys like us might be able to get a real good value out of this one.
Yeah. You got to think plus 170. That's a real nice price tag for a fight that truly is likely a 50-50 fight. Before we get out of here, guys, let's look at some props. Anything that jump out? I'm looking here now that they've just put these props up. Peek by TKO. KO is plus 250. You got to figure if he's going to get it done, it's going to be that way. So plus 250 is pretty nice on the TKO return. And then just Peek inside the distance, plus 235 if he decides that he wants to grapple. I don't know that that's necessarily, given the situation, something they, in my opinion, he would really want to dabble around with too much. Just, you stick with what's got you there, my opinion. The other pretty nice value I'm seeing is you can get Peek in round 1 at plus 500, and Peek in round 2 and plus 800. Those are some pretty nice numbers. Anything jump out there, Cody, as being juicy?
Yeah, well, I mean, basically all of them. I would think that the Peek by TKO, because the way he fights and the way he brings his style, I mean, that's certainly worth looking. I'm glad you brought that up because there was another reason why I was betting Trevor Peek in the spot. As Jeff mentioned, undefeated as a professional, but he does have the 2 amateur losses. Those amateur losses are good for a fighter because one thing about Trevor Peek is he's faced adversity outside of the cage, but he's also faced some adversity inside of the cage. Has had to go back to the drawing board, has been in bad spots, has gassed in fights and realized, I don't want this to happen to me anymore. And he got chin checked by Worthy, who is one hell of a striker, and was able to now say, I know I can take a punch. When you look at Malik Lewis, he's not faced any adversity. He's never been in a whole lot of bad spots. He's never been rocked. He's never been tired. He's never been in the absolute driver's seat from the start of the fight to the end of the fight. So if he ends up in a bad spot, you don't know how he's going to react. You don't know how good his chin is. You don't know these things about him. And for that reason, I think that Trevor Peek could do what he does, and that's get a finish. So at plus 250, definite value. The other thing is that the fights just ain't going the distance. Maybe the under 2.5. Trevor Peek will do everything in his power to get it done inside the distance. And if for whatever reason he fails at doing so, it's possible that he goes out on his shield in his attempt, right? I don't think Malik Lewis is some big finisher, but when you're exhausted from trying to put the guy away, well, then anything can happen. But I would think the fight doesn't go the distance. The Trevor Peek by knockout. Like you said, Trevor Peek inside the distance all around. The last thing that I just want to touch on really quick is you mentioned perhaps that Peek wouldn't go to the ground. See, I may disagree with that statement. He was comfortable with slamming Worthy to the ground and trying to get some positions going on him. And of course, Worthy, BJJ brown belt, a guy that had submitted Luis Pena in the UFC and was no slouch. He was comfortable there. His training partners, a lot of high-level grapplers, because of course, Agogi started out as strictly a jiu-jitsu gym. So his training partners have a whole lot of faith in him. And when you look at Malik Lewis, Jeff would have noticed this as well. That first round with Marcos Vinicius, he just presses him up against the cage for 4 minutes and 50 seconds. And with 10 seconds left, it's Marcos Vinicius that actually takes him down. Yeah. And then in the second round, right, he gets Vinicius down early. Vinicius immediately pops back up. They're scrambling for exchanges. They get into a one scramble, and it looks like Lewis is tired. And it's a give or go moment. And Vinicius ends up on top. And Lewis throws up a lazy-ass triangle and catches him because the Brazilian's tired on top. That's Trevor Peek on top of you. You lose that position. Different ball game, baby. Different ball game. He wants this. He wants this more than anything. And the guy's already dangerous when he's motivated. It adds that extra layer. So to talk to your props, yes, I've got pretty much all the ones you listed as well.
How do you stack up strength of schedule here? The records of the 2 Brazilians that Malik Lewis beat were pretty shiny, but upon further review, a lot of those records were very Brazilian regional scene, which at times can be just as weak as the Southeast regional scene. And so, how would you stack up their level of competition thus far?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think both guys have fought in, the low-level guys of their regional scene and have also fought the high-level guys of their regional scene. So in Trevor Peek's case, he has a win over Chris Mims, who's a lion fight veteran. He has the win over David Robbins, who, of course, is undefeated, BJJ black belt, had good things going for him. Those are all solid victories. But the biggest win that either guy's got is Worthy. Worthy was 2-3 in the UFC. But that's still 5 UFC fights. The guy won 2 of them. He was a 2-time performance bonus winner. He had a knockout of the night over Devontae Smith, a submission of the night over Luis Pena, who's a very solid talent. He was a legitimate talent, right? When you look at the guys that Malik Lewis has fought, I mean, just 3 fights back, this Tyler Smith, he fights him at 170 or something, and the guy's 1-8. These are just fights that you're taking for no reason. And I know that, Trevor Peek has fought Warren Smith, and it was a fight for no reason. But you do what you got to do against those guys, and that's make it a spectacular finish. And in Peek's case, it was one hell of a spectacular finish. It's him getting more comfortable in there. The time to beat Trevor Peek was last year. The year before that. It was when he was an amateur. Because you guys know better than anybody, because you were the ones matchmaking him and booking him. He gets a lot better every single fight. So I'm expecting the same thing out of him. He's 27 years old. He's got his life together. He's got a lot of people behind him. He's training full time. You're going to continuously see better versions of him. Whereas Malik, because he's undefeated as an amateur and as a pro, you don't have to change anything up. You don't go back and be like, man, I really need to change this. I really need to focus on this. It's another just, oh yeah, I beat the guy up. And to speak to Marcos Vinicius's record, yes, it looks good, but there in no way, shape. Marcos Vinicius lasts 3.5, maybe 4 minutes against Commonworthy. That's it. He would get absolutely smoked out of the water by Commonworthy. No question about it. Whereas with Trevor Peek, it was like, with Lewis, he was in the fight. The first round, neither guy got taken down. He got the takedown at the end. Second round, he gasses out, still ends up on top, gets caught in a triangle choke. It wasn't the prettiest of performances. So you've got Malik Lewis coming off a lackluster performance where I don't think he learned a whole lot, versus a Trevor Peek that's coming off a career best performance where he proved a lot to himself. Even just fighting sick, he proved a lot to himself that I can do this, right? If I set my mind to it. He's a huge believer of Christ, and the guy's motivated. He's got dedication in himself and faith in a power above him, and I just think he's a man on a mission, which is very difficult to stop.
I love it at plus 170. Any parting thoughts, Jeff, here? Get us wrapped up. We've got, 24 hours at this point till we're going to, figure it out. Is Trevor Peek going to get the call or not? Like Cody said, I can't see a version of a win here that would not get a contract. I think that Dana's going to love this guy as long as he comes through and delivers a win. It will be a contract-worthy win. Jeff, wrap us up.
Yeah, just going back to the meat on the bone that you were talking about. For me, just straight up betting a Trevor Peek to win is a useless bet. I'm taking the juice. I'm taking the extras, because if you're already a Trevor Peek fan and you're betting on Trevor Peek, why not hit that extra money? I'm gonna go for the KO TKO, and I'm gonna put some on first and second round, and just see which one I can hit. So. I'm definitely going for like Cody and I were talking before we went on air. We're parlay guys. I'm not just betting one football game. I'm trying to hit 8. Because why not? What's $20? I want 2,000. Give me all of it. So yeah. So I'm going.
I'm having fun on.
Yep, I'm going after all the money.
If you're out there in Tennessee, you can bet on this fight at Action 247 Sportsbook. If you're going to do it, might as well put in the Aries promo code, and you get a 50% match bonus up to $400. Give us a little scratch in our pockets. Maybe we can bet it on Trevor too. Cody, we appreciate the time, my man, as always. Hopefully we get to talk to you again in the fall here. Got a big slate of shows coming up. I think our next pro show will be October 29th. So we will look forward to speaking to you ahead of then. Make sure you follow Cody on Twitter, CJ Saftic at Twitter, and you can get all of his picks for UFC, one of the best out there. And we always appreciate the time, my man. And Jeff, I guess we'll see you here in a couple short days as we break down the fair show here on the YouTube channel. For Cody, for Jeff, I'm Tim Lloyd. We're signing out on another edition of the 0 Hour. Go Trevor Peek. Make that money. Cash those tickets.